and welcome to Positive Health, where we explore ways to improve overall health and give you confidence to make lifestyle changes to move beyond survival. I'm Miriam Bowden, your host. My guest is Nancy Selden, CEO and founder of WellPeer. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Miriam.
Can you tell us, first of all, what is a stroke?
A stroke in general is some sort of injury to the brain. It can be from a bleed or getting hit in the head that causes there to be a problem with the functioning of the brain.
How many people are affected by strokes?
Well, first let me say that there's been a lot of work done in keeping people from dying from stroke. As a matter of fact, stroke moved from being the third greatest cause of death to the fifth now. So there's been some tremendous work in getting information out about how to avoid stroke. But even with that, there are 800,000 people a year who suffer a stroke. And of those, 600,000 are new strokes. So that means 150 to 200,000 people have had another stroke. And then you have 400,000 people who end up with some disability that makes their life challenging, whether it's physical, speech, or severe depression.
Okay. What is it that got you involved working with stroke survivors?
About 5 years ago, my mom had a serious stroke, and she really didn't like physical therapy, and it was devastating for both her and our family. I had been teaching a fitness class for seniors, and before the stroke, she came to the class. And one of the things she wanted to do after the stroke was come back to the class. So we tried. We brought her in, and everyone was very welcoming because they had known her before. But it was very difficult for her to fit into a class of people who had not had this type of injury. And she really sort of lost heart at that. Sadly, she passed away about 3 years ago. And then a year later, I was given an opportunity by a group called the Stroke Comeback Center, who deals with aphasia, which is a speech problem, to come in and try to design a fitness program for people who have had strokes. And I love it. It's been great. It's very hard having a stroke. A lot of challenges.
Who has strokes?
Well, everybody has strokes. Young people have strokes. Our parents, our grandparents, our friends. I know a lot of really young people in their 20s and 30s who have strokes for various reasons. You mentioned that you know someone who had a stroke at birth, as do I. So it can hit anyone. There are factors that can help you avoid having a stroke. You can stay healthier. And once you do have a stroke, you have a lot of challenges, as does your family. The cost of stroke to families and society is incalculable.
And some of those effects, besides the aphasia, the physical aftermath of a stroke,
yes.
How does that manifest?
Well, generally what you see is weakness on one side, and it's interesting if someone has had a stroke on one side of the brain, they can have speech affected. And on the other side, it manifests in different ways, but usually you have weakness on one side of the body, the right arm and right leg, left arm and left leg, balance. One of the big problems is vision. A lot of people lose their vision with a stroke, so driving is very difficult, which just compounds things. So.
And generally, the outcome after a stroke, what would a person expect as far as how long their life will go on after a stroke, if it does?
You know, these days people can live a full life after a stroke, which is one of the things about having an exercise program and encouraging exercise, because you know, we love these people and we want them to be with us. And so it behooves us to make them as healthy as possible so they can go on and be part of our lives. So we need to find ways to encourage people to do the things to take care of themselves, the same things that people who have not been affected by stroke would do.
And your program?
Well, my program picks up where insurance leaves off. Everyone who has had a stroke will get a certain amount of therapy, rehab, paid for by insurance companies or Medicare or whatever is they're covered by. But then that ends. So if you do not have the resources, for instance, to hire a personal trainer, and you have a physical challenge that keeps you out of a gym or a regular class, then there's really not that much you can do, especially if you have trouble walking and you can't take walks that are long enough to really do you any good. So we developed programs and classes that would sort of fill that gap and allow people to come in with groups of peers and feel comfortable.
And we are going to talk more about that when we come back from our break. Stay tuned to find out how you can reduce your risk for stroke.
What is the difference between a photographer and a visual artist?
Well, the difference is not a lot. To put it simply, I'm a visual artist. Okay, I use photography, but I use other means to express myself.
Montgomery Community Media offers many courses.
Half the people getting to know these awesome people whom I work with and I'm learning with, and great teachers, and it's also like, oh, this is how TV works.
When I'm watching shows like talk shows or even, exercise shows, things like that, I look at it so differently.
That kind of like, there is a guy sitting at a giant board filled with buttons just pushing them. That makes sense.
We teach our students how to be the reporter, the shooter, and the editor for their very own news pieces.
This is a good opportunity to learn about different ways of documentary and editing.
My dad got an email from someone and he told me it was going to be a good opportunity to learn how to edit, shoot videos, and interview people.
It's really good and you should come to MCM Backpack Journalism class because it's exciting and it's actually really fun.
MCM to me means opportunity. It's giving me the opportunity to gain experience on an actual show that airs on the network. And I don't think I'll be able to get that experience anywhere else. So it's been a great experience for me so far.
For anybody that hasn't taken one of the MCM classes, I encourage you, go out, try it, you won't regret it. You'll have an experience that you're gonna see how the cameras work, and actually an opportunity to be part of video production. That's what I would recommend anybody that's interested in MCM.
Welcome back to Positive Health, where we are continuing our discussion about moving beyond survival with Nancy Selden of WellPeer. Welcome back, Nancy.
Thank you.
Well, we were going to start talking about your organization, and can you give us information on how you started designing your program?
Well, what we did is we realized that exercise is so important for everyone. And when someone has had a stroke or a traumatic brain injury, and I want to say this is our veterans coming back who have had head injuries as well, there have to be adaptations to an exercise program. And it's not an easy thing to do. If you realize the weaknesses and also the cognitive challenges in speech. So we've designed programs that give the peer support. It's so important to be in a setting with people who share your challenges. And they give you support, they have a good time, they just feel more comfortable really challenging themselves and exercising. So that's where it came from. But it's also important for people to know what they can do so they don't have a stroke. And I think that you need to, for one thing, know your numbers. You need to know what your blood pressure is, your cholesterol. If you smoke, don't. And drink moderately. It's basically those things that people will say to live a healthy life. And one of the big things is to be active. So whether you are trying to avoid a stroke or have had a stroke and want to live a long and healthy life, be active, exercise.
Okay. Now, one of the things that you were saying during the break and before the show was that the lack in stroke aftercare is that there aren't programs in place, and your program really addresses that.
It does. And I think that we will see more of this because having exercise and keeping people post-stroke healthy is going to cut down on medical costs. There was a wonderful study that came out about a year ago in October that showed that exercise was actually more effective than medication at keeping people from having another stroke. I mean, that's very exciting. And I'm sure the drug companies don't appreciate that. But if you can get out and take a walk and do that and keep yourself healthy, then that's a great thing.
And what would a typical program look like for someone who was just beginning,
just had a
stroke and is just trying to get themselves back together?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. As I said, most people will have gone through some rehab. So they will have started to figure out where their strengths and weaknesses are. And our programs don't try to be rehab. We're really just getting people moving and getting them to enjoy moving and have fun with it and feel more comfortable in their bodies and their strength. That little term, the activities of daily living that they use to qualify people, those things that you need to do to just go on with your life, well, exercise will help you with those. And it takes the burden off your caregivers, your family, your spouse, your children. As a stroke survivor, you should do that for them too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Where do you see WellPeer going next? What is your next goal for your company?
Well, what I'm doing now is I'm cataloging all the things I've learned over the last 2 years, and I'm creating a certification. So I want to train other people to teach these classes. I can't keep up with the number of people who want to exercise post-stroke. And I need to find other people who want to do this. It's the most gratifying thing. The people work so hard. They want to be strong and healthy and be better.
Wonderful. Well, we hope that you've received some confidence to make lifestyle changes to guide your vision for moving beyond survival. For more information on WellPeer and Circle of Rights, please visit www.wellpeer.org or www.circleofrights.org. Thank you so much, Nancy, for visiting us, and I guarantee that people got a lot of good information there.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.